Angela Merkel, once considered the most powerful woman in the world, has stayed largely silent since stepping down as Germany's leader 3 years ago. Until now. She's talking with Mark Phillips.
These still conjure up highly emotional memories
Ja,
for you.
natürlich.
We met Angela Merkel in a fitting place for her, the museum in Berlin dedicated to the Wall, that great symbol of the Cold War division between East and West. Parts of the Wall have been preserved as a reminder of those hard times, especially for someone who lived through them.
When you look at the Wall, what comes to mind to you immediately?
Ja, zwischen meinem 7. und
Between the ages of 7 and 35, I had to live with this wall. I was, so to speak, behind the wall and couldn't come to this side. And of course, that's still very moving.
Angela Merkel's new book is filled with moving memories of what it was like growing up in the communist-controlled police state that was East Germany. Her family had moved there when she was an infant because her father, a Protestant pastor, was assigned to a church there. But it was the fall of the Wall that spurred her political awakening and jump-started a career nobody would have bet on. A woman from the East who would not only become Chancellor of Germany,
So wahr mir Gott helfe.
but who would hold the job for 16 years, who would be called the most powerful woman in the world, and who would deal with its most powerful men. It turns out life in the East actually had given her one advantage for dealing with all those men in dark suits. Those bright pantsuits of hers weren't an accident.
Und ich schreibe ja
In my book, I write that maybe my love for colorful clothes is due to the fact that in the East, everything was very gray.
Angela Merkel.
Merkel's uniform became part of her identity and helped her break through the American pop cultural barrier
Hello, fellow cool kids.
the way few European leaders could. Angela Merkel left power 3 years ago this week and has gone into a kind of self-imposed political radio silence since then, keeping her recollections and her opinions to herself. Not anymore. Among the more awkward memories, that first shocking, even embarrassing meeting with President Donald Trump.
I think it's fair to say your most difficult relationship with an American president was with President Trump in his first term. You talk about your first encounter in the Oval Office where he refused to shake your hand. And you say that it occurred to you that he was fascinated with Putin and with politicians with authoritarian and dictatorial traits. Why did you say that?
warum meine Hand nicht schütteln wollte.
Why he didn't want to shake my hand, that you have to ask him. I think he often conveyed a message with a handshake. With some men, he shook hands for a long time.
What were you thinking? Should I reach over? Will we shake hands? Won't we shake hands? What's he trying to do?
Naja, ich beschreibe das ja.
I describe it in my book because it was so interesting. I whispered to him, I think they want us to shake hands. And at that moment, when I said it, I noticed that he wanted to convey a message. And I was quite naive, telling him that they want us to shake hands.
But did you get what he was trying to do? Did you think, oh, he's going to play it that way? That's how we're going to do it.
Ja, so ist es. Und
yeah, that's the way it was. I left being convinced that multilateral cooperation would be difficult with Donald Trump. You can make deals with Donald Trump because he always thinks in terms of advantage and disadvantage. But in my experience, win-win situations are not only good for one side, but for both sides. That's not really his way of thinking.
Merkel's book, which is being released around the world, went to press before last month's election.
You say at the end of your first chapter about Donald Trump that you wish with all my heart that Kamala Harris defeats her competitor and becomes president. Were you very disappointed in the results of the American election?
ich war traurig.
I was sad. First of all, I wanted a woman to win. I was also in favor of Hillary Clinton. And secondly, I'm closer to Kamala Harris's political conviction. But the American voters have decided, and it was a democratic election.
Merkel has come in for her own share of criticism since she left office. Her decision to allow more than 1 million refugees and migrants fleeing Syria into Germany is now often cited as a reason for the rise of the anti-immigrant right-wing political parties in Europe. She says those forces were on the rise anyway. Her decision to allow the German economy to become too dependent on Russian natural gas is seen as another reason for Germany's economic decline since the flow was stopped. She says staying engaged with Vladimir Putin seemed like the right idea at the time, difficult though it was, and it didn't stop him from invading Ukraine.
You dealt a lot with Vladimir Putin. I take it, reading between the lines of your book, that you found him a very difficult and manipulative character as well, that he, even an intimidating character at times. Famously, you don't like dogs, he'd bring his dog to the meeting. Do you think he did that in an intimidating kind of way? And how would you suggest people deal with him, especially as things are heating up again?
Na, ohne Furcht.
Without fear. Of course, there are attempts to see how people react under a certain amount of pressure, and Putin can do that too. And with the dog, he expressed exactly that. But it all depends on how I manage the situation. I'm used to political pressure since childhood, so that did not shock me.
Angela Merkel, despite all her experience, says she now refrains from giving advice, but she does give hints.
Are you worried about the way things are now?
Ich bin insgesamt über die Entwicklung
I'm
der
worried
Welt
in general about the developments in the world. I've always said that fear is not a good advisor.
Die Zeiten sind rauer geworden.
Times have become rougher. We are now sitting in a place where the world was divided in the Cold War. And then there was 1990. We had great hopes that things would become easier after the end of the Cold War.
Das sind sie nicht geworden.
Things have not become easier.